Hi everyone, my name is Vagner Santana and I'm a research scientist at IBM Research, part of the Responsible and Inclusive Technologies group. Today I'll present a case study entitled Computational Notebook as a tool for supporting Black engineers, non-profit organizations in the context of workforce participation. This work was done in collaboration with Lauren Quigley, Jessica Quotes, and Maxine Graves from IBM Research and IBM Client Engineering. First, the motivation for the study. We all know that data has potential to help, but also to cause harms towards vulnerable communities. When we think about publicly available data, we have government agencies that provide support and tooling to general public, but we also have agencies that do not invest a lot of resources on easing access to the general public. So this creates the need for certain data skills on manipulating massive data sets, connecting with APIs, or gathering multiple data series and gain insights. Combining all of this, need for social justice lens, government data complexity, and formatting data skills led to the creation of the Data Hub project. In terms of contribution, this case study presents a participatory action research project involving supporting a non-profit organization on performing their own data analysis and data narratives. I'll detail a couple of data assets we created in the next slides, and the whole idea was to provide means for the organization that we partnered with to perform their own data analysis and insights from the publicly available data, especially concerning workforce participation. The partner for this project was the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE, which is a non-profit organization based in the US. And in terms of interaction with stakeholders, for approximately a year, we had a series of bi-weekly meetings and conversations to understand their needs, elicit requirements, and also to perform multiple iterations in terms of how and what we were creating. The first prototype was created to combine existing trends in terms of statistic dashboards. We also include a few features based on NSBE requirements, and we got feedback from them in terms of adding a narrative synthesis and include specific occupational categories that NSBE specifically is interested in providing support. The challenge for this specific version includes low loading speeds in terms of technology connecting with databases, merging multiple tables, and here we're talking about tens or even hundreds of tables with data series. An additional challenge was integrating this with more recent cloud technology so that it could be available for the partner in case they want to iterate the code. The first version was coded in R using the Shiny library to allow that to become a web app in the future. The second version of the prototype is on top of lessons learned from the previous iteration. And from the very beginning, we started thinking about how to make it easier to deploy it to a cloud infrastructure. And we had to rethink the approach in terms of technologies and libraries we were using. So for instance, when we started thinking about languages, we went from R to Python, which is a more popular language right now. We also considered using Computational Notebook because it is a well-known way to allow people to move from a more consumer of descriptive statistics to creator of data narratives. Another aspect we aimed at was to make the code as simple as possible. For this, we use Pigwalker library, which is powered on Tableau, a visualization software, and tries to bring some of Tableau capabilities to Python. So that was the overall rationale on why we created and structured the second prototype in terms of technology. This case study details specifically the analysis of this second prototype. The goal for this specific evaluation was to assess the usefulness of this computational notebook and how they created data narratives. For this, we conduct interviews and guided exploration exercises with them. The guided explorations aimed at providing them guidance to use the computational notebook and also to understand how they would use that in real scenarios. We also provide a list of tasks that were based on conversations we had in terms of what they were looking for in a data analysis tool. So the tests included, for instance, identifying trends, creating filters, and analyzing specific data series in terms of attributes such as occupation, gender, and race. 2 weeks after initial iterations and guidance, we reached out to them to gather feedback and understand how they use the computational notebook. Now, moving to the results, we collected valuable feedback in terms of this second prototype, and we have here a few participants' quotes. Overall, they highlighted some usability issues with the user interface, but they also found interesting trends in terms of data analysis and how they perform data analysis considering intersectionalities of interest for them that were hard to obtain right from raw data sets. There was also discussion about the learning curve on interacting with this specific UI that was new for most of them. They also suggested a few improvements in terms of the UI and how to explain certain elements. As final remarks, first, the case study presented reflections and how valuable Computational Notebook can be for social justice nonprofit organizations in terms of how we can support them to create their own data narratives and perform data analysis considering valuable intersectionalities for them. In terms of limitations, we had a reduced number of participants, but that's due to the very nature of the participatory action research performed. Generative AI can be used for data analysis, but the AI literacy is as important as the skill aspect that I mentioned at the very beginning. So it is an interesting path to pursue, but we also need to keep in mind that the knowledge to understand when to trust and when not to trust in insights produced by generative AI is also of key importance. And finally, part projects are inherently embedded in particular contexts and promote mutual learning. In this project, our partnership with NSBE allows us to move from a technocentric solution to a simpler and more organization-centered solution, connecting our partners' goals and needs with a simpler technological solution to bridge the gap between the publicly available data and data analysis they wanted to perform. Finally, in part projects, the process is as important as the outcomes, and the whole process was rich in full lessons learned on how to provide people different means for performing their own data analysis. You can find more details in the paper. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me. Thank you.